Hey everybody, welcome back to Disappointing Your Demons. My name's Ron and I am a grateful recovering alcoholic. I apologize about not getting here sooner with the video, but we had some power outages down here, and also, family is down here and grandbaby, whole nine yards. So I've been a little bit preoccupied, but back at it today. So I think where I left off last time was that I had made it through my detoxing in my apartment and made it to my first AA meeting. The first one that I really truly wanted to be at anyway, and had the gift of desperation, which is a funny term, I know. Gift of desperation sounds like a pretty crappy gift, but is actually truly a blessing. But I met my friend and future sponsor Jay there, and he welcomed me. And again, when nobody on this planet wanted anything to do with me, they saw me walking down the street, they would quickly cross the street, and my parents, nobody wanted me around. And he said welcome, and he said, we saved a seat for you. And he sat next to me for that whole first meeting and rubbed my back and just let me know that everything was going to be okay. I asked him to be my sponsor, and he man, if it wasn't for him, he took me under his wing. He had a family of his own, and every night for the first month or 2 months, two months, he took no excuses. He came by and he picked me up every night to make sure that I got to a meeting, and made me call him every day, even when I didn't want to. And that was incredible. I don't even know how else to put it. It was a gift. It was a gift from my higher power. And sitting in those first few meetings, sitting there, just looking around, and everybody's happy and smiling, and I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, what the actual fuck do you have to be so goddamn happy about? Like, I am freaking miserable. My life's in tatters. I'm still so sick. But little by little, keeping on going to the meetings, I realized what they were all happy about, and what they're all smiling about is that they were free. That they didn't have the demons whispering in their ear. They didn't have the horrible nightmare, waking nightmare anymore. And I slowly but surely started to get some of that happiness myself. And it's not to say that everything was puppy dogs and rainbows when I got sober. Things actually got worse for a little while. I mean, I remember being so poor that I would have my kids for visitation. Eventually, I got my kids back for visitation, and I would literally have to not eat for 3 days to make sure that I had enough money to feed them. I actually became homeless for a few weeks while I was fairly new in sobriety. I literally was sleeping in my car. I had all my worldly possessions in my little shitbox Ford Escort that I had. Three trash bags worth of clothes and a box worth of cooking implements like pots and pans and shit. And I had this job where I was the manager, and basically what I would do is I would leave work, and I'd get in my car and I would drive away, and I'd go about 15 minutes down the road and wait until I was sure that nobody was at the shop, and then I would go back and I would sit in the parking lot, and there were security cameras, but I knew where all the blind spots were in the security cameras. I always figure that out for some reason, but knew where all the blind spots were in the security cameras, and I would park and sleep in my car, and I had the keys to the shop, and they had a shower, and I would go in before anybody would get there, and I would shower and get changed, and I would just make it seem like I was just being a good employee and getting there early to open everything up. and have everything to go. But reality was I was homeless. Um, so yeah, I mean, that was tough. But one thing that kept me going through it was that I was sober, and while things were tough, I knew they were going to get better. And also, like, I wasn't waking up sick to my stomach anymore. I wasn't having to apologize to anybody anymore. I wasn't having to, not be able to look at myself in the mirror, you know. Um, and it was great. It sounds weird to say that being homeless and broke was great, but it was great. Um, and then, so over the years, things just kept getting better and better. And over the months, I should say, there were certainly, again, some dark points in my sobriety. Life on life's terms, though. I had a couple of brief relationships. One was extremely abusive. Don't need to get into all the details, but this person would burn me with cigarettes while I was sleeping. Different things, mental and physical abuse, and I'm trying to maintain sobriety and be the better person, but I had to make an emergency exit at one point, and then homeless again. But this time, at least, it was only for a few days. Had a friend, say that I could stay with him for a while, and which, again, if I wasn't sober, I wouldn't have had that. They never would have invited me over to their house to stay. They would have absolutely told me that, you're not welcome, because that's just how crazy and how much of a problem I was or am when I drink. But anyways, things did keep getting better and better, though. I got my kids back in my life. I got, my parents, they started asking me to come around again. Had multiple job losses, but eventually landed in a spot that I, liked. Worked there for a while. And then in sobriety, I met, so I was about 2.5 years sober, and I met this woman, and originally wasn't supposed to be anything other than just meeting for a cup of coffee. And, one cup of coffee led to another meetup, and that meetup led to another, and next thing you know, we're dating, and she's great woman. She grew up in, that's how I ended up, talking to her, is that she grew up in the town that I grew up in. She was a year older than me, and currently at the time lived in the same town that I grew up in Milton. And yeah, we fell in love and started dating. And I stayed sober. I was going to meetings, every day thereabouts. I would take a night off here or there on my meeting, if I'm going to meetings. But yeah, and one thing leads to another. She met my kids. My kids absolutely fell in love with her. They were about 12. My oldest was about 12 at the time, 13, and youngest I think was about 5 or 6. But it was through sobriety. Like I was still. I guess I'm going to back up a little bit. So, one of the things that happened in sobriety, let me get to this before I get to, what happened in that relationship, is that I call it learning to walk again. In sobriety, I had drank so I got sober first time around when I was 35 years old, 36 years old. So that is basically a 23-year drinking career, and in my entire adult life, never sober. Never sober long enough for it to really make any difference. But you have to learn how to be a human being again. You have to learn how to have social interactions and personal interactions and familial interactions and professional interactions sober for the first time, basically in my adult life. And it was tough. It was tough trying to figure out how to navigate these situations. Um, I would do the thing. I would talk to my sponsor, and this, that, and the other thing. But I remember after my first year of sobriety, almost to the day. I think it was to the day. I was sitting. I was laying around in my apartment or whatever, and I felt like I was gonna have a goddamn panic attack. I was just anxious, and all this other stuff was like hitting me, and I really thought I was dying. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, I thought I was dying. Like, I did not know what was going on with me, and my brain was going haywire. And finally, I called my sponsor, and I'm like, man, like, something's wrong. Like, I don't know if I should go to the hospital or what. And it sounds silly, but unless you go through it, and until you go through it, man, I know you're not going to really get it. But my sponsor asked me, he's like, well, describe what's going on. And I told him, and he goes, dude, he goes, you know what those are? And he goes, and it happens to all of us. I go, what? What is it? What's going on? He goes, it's called feelings. They're called feelings, man. Like, it's part of the fucking deal. You gotta learn how to deal with them. Like, you gotta process them. Like, and it really did hit me like a ton of bricks. And it took almost that whole second year of sobriety for me to really get my head around and grasp feelings. Like, I love my daughters. That was never a thing. Like, never a thing that I questioned ever. But it was like everybody else. Like, making new friends. Like, it was really tough. Just because every time I would make friends or whatever, or so-called friends, like, I was drunk as fuck. So I had to learn how to do all of that too. So back to meeting my the lady that I met. I mean, man, she was a good kid. Irish Catholic from Milton. Remember telling my dad about that. He just said, Ronnie, what did I tell you about dating the Irish? And I said, nothing, Dad. You told me never to date an Italian girl. He goes, yeah, but I thought the Irish went without saying. But they hit it off great, the two of them. And he would always tease her, and she would tease him. And but yeah, I fell in love, and again, tried to navigate a new relationship and an actual relationship in sobriety. And it took some doing. It was at its ups and downs, and it was a bumpy road for a little. Not for her, because she didn't really know what I was going through because I was too afraid to tell her. But she, I would have my moments, and I'd just be like, look, it's like just stuff that you're gonna have to deal with me being a recovering alcoholic. And I would have night terrors. I would wake up, not knowing where I was still, and she was very understanding of all of that. But yeah, so we were together for about 7 years. Things that happened in our relationship that I would never have been able to deal with sobriety, not in sobriety, but when I was using or drinking. Got custody of my kid for a little while because things weren't going good with her mom, and that went sideways because of issues, nothing to do really with me or her, or my girlfriend, but just trying to deal with that put a pretty big wrench in the works. But I was able to be there and do that. Never would have happened if I had been drinking. We had a good life though. She was a professional in the apparel world, in the apparel industry. Was our relationship perfect? No, by no means. But we rarely argued. We rarely, maybe 2 times in our entire relationship while we were in Milton did we raise our voices to each other, which is crazy. But then things started happening with me. I've got this great, wonderful life. I've got all sorts of gifts in sobriety. And then I think to myself, I've got this. I don't need to go to AA anymore. I don't have time for that. I got family commitments. I got that, and I forgot what got me to this position in the first place, to this point in my life in the first place. And little by little, I start not going to meetings as much as I should. Like, I would go from 5 nights a week to 4 nights a week, and 4 to 3, so on and so forth. Stopped talking to my sponsor. Didn't have a sponsor at this point. Little by little, I'm going to 1 meeting a week, to 1 meeting every other week, to maybe 1 a month. And meanwhile, I got this great job at a fancy car dealership, this, that, and the other thing. And my girlfriend had introduced me to traveling. I never traveled before. I never flew. I hated flying. I was terrified of it. But she made me get my passport and said, if you're going to be with me, you're going to travel. And so we went, my first time really out of the country, other than to Canada, which I don't really consider Canada a foreign country. It's just America North. We went to the Caribbean. I went to the Caribbean for the first time, to an island called St. Martin. And I fell in love with the Caribbean. Went scuba diving, snorkeling, boat trips, and I just absolutely fell in love. And then, over the course of the next, few years, every year we would go to a different Caribbean island. Been to the Cayman Islands, been to Aruba, whatever. I don't need to list them all, but I've been all over the Caribbean. And so me and her, we decided that we wanted to move to the Caribbean, but it was more of a retirement plan than it was a right now plan. And then ultimately, I just happened to Google how to move to the Caribbean as a U.S. citizen, and then basically Google was like, duh, U.S. Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico. So just so happened that there was a very cheap, very inexpensive flight to St. Thomas. So I decided to go, and we vacationed there, and it had been right after a couple of big storms had hit the islands, Irma and Maria. So the islands were still pretty much in tatters and getting rebuilt, but we go there, and man, I really want to do this, and looked on Indeed to find it. I just wanted to find out how much a mechanic could make down in the Virgin Islands, and turns out it's a pretty good amount. And I messaged this one shop that was over on St. John because they had an ad on there, and didn't hear back from them for a while. We get back home. I think it was 6 months later, they finally returned my inquiry. Little did I know island time is actually a real thing. But that put the wheels in motion. And meanwhile, another year goes by, and me and the shop are talking back and forth. I'm still working at the Acura dealership I was working at. Little by little, though, I'm slacking off on going to meetings. I'm literally maybe one every couple of months now. And I'm starting to hear the whispers, the demons. Like, if you get to move to this island, maybe you can start drinking again. Maybe you can just have a little bit, I didn't know a whole lot about the culture in the Virgin Islands, but it's a very alcohol-centric culture. But I'm hearing the whispers. And finally, me and the shop that I was talking to came to an agreement. And they just wanted me to come down and try out for 2 weeks. So I did. Told my job that I had an opportunity in the Caribbean. I'm going to check it out, and going to be off for 2 weeks, and let you know what happens when I get back. Well, I get there, and I'm going to be honest, my first few days I was absolutely friggin' miserable. I was missing my girlfriend. I was missing my kids. I was in this, strange place. And all the while, the demons are whispering. And my bosses took me out because I think they've, kind of got the vibe that I wasn't too sure about it. Basically told me, you know what, we'll take you out to dinner. After that, go to the beach at sunset. So that's what I did, and I floated around in the water at this beach called Hawk's Nest, my favorite beach down here. And sitting there floating in the water while the sun's setting, and the sun, while, the water, while it's this, awesome blue during the day, it just turns into this like silver color during sunset. It's like, I don't know how to explain it other than that. It's just this like brilliant silver color. And I thought, oh yeah, now I remember why I wanted to move down here. And so then I had made the decision. I was moving down to the Caribbean. And, yeah. I don't know. I don't know why. Basically, what happened was that I went to the beach on the weekend, and I'm sitting on the beach, and again the demons are whispering. You can just have one. Your family's not here. Nobody will ever know. Blah blah blah. So I went and I grabbed a mixed drink from the bar at the beach that I was at, and that was it. 7 years down the absolute freaking shitter. But I didn't feel bad about it. I've had a little bit of regret, but I was like, this is my reward. My reward. Anyway, come back to the States, tell my girlfriend that I want to move down. She's like, I'm coming with you. Okay, we're doing this. Ended up taking my oldest daughter to Aruba in the meantime for her graduation present. And on the flight back from Aruba, I dropped the news on her that I have the opportunity to move down to the Caribbean, and she just says, you know what, Dad? You've worked so hard for so long. You deserve this. She goes, you should do it. That was it. That was all the push that I needed. Told my other two kids. One of them, my middle kid, was not happy about it at all, but it is what it is. And then tell my girlfriend that, I had a couple drinks down there, and she was nervous, to say the least. She didn't jump all over me like I thought she was going to, but she just said something along the lines of, well, if you think you can control it, you think it's not going to be a problem. She goes, just that's okay, but just keep an eye on it or whatever. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll keep an eye on it. And I couldn't wait to get down here again. Could not wait, because I knew what it was going to do. And so we packed up our lives, we said our goodbyes, sold a bunch of stuff. She rented out her house. We packed up, shipped all my tools down, and I came down first. There was a delay with my girlfriend getting down here. I got down January 2nd of 2020 to good old St. John, and she didn't get here until, I believe it was March of 2020. That's important because in those 3 months, literally the second I got off the plane at St. Thomas Airport, they give out free shots of the local rum, and I just grabbed one and ripped it. And started off down that path. Just with that one shot, with that one mixed drink on the beach, all bets were off. And it didn't start off crazy right away. It'd be one night I would have a beer or two, and then the next night take a break, so on and so forth, until next thing you know, I'm having a couple of beers every night. And then it just started the long, slow march. Started all over again. Well, I think that's where I'm going to end it today. Yeah, that's where I'm going to end it today. If you've watched all the way to the end, I appreciate it. If you don't mind hitting the like and subscribe button if you haven't already. Also, leave a comment. I appreciate and will respond to all comments. I'd love to hear from you. I just want this channel to grow again. I'm just trying to save somebody's life, and hopefully that they can relate to my story some way, somehow. Well, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.